video games can be at times miraculous. I mean, apart from the fact that you have the opportunity to step into a world created by someone else, to live someone else's dream, to exist within their fantasy in a way that nothing else can. Because unlike books, in games you don't lose your agency, you don't just exist there passively as an observer as you would in movies and as you would in every kind of other media. Games are miraculous, and within them there's room for even more. Which is why this is the top 10 miracles of gaming. Yes, top 10, because there are a whole lot of miracles within the video games industry and within the video games themselves that we can appreciate. They make no sense for normal people. It's okay. They don't have to. It's just for us. We know that some of these events are just proof that somewhere out there, there's someone smiling at us. Probably Don Matrick. He used to do that quite a lot and clap like he just got second place even though he thought he was getting first place in a contest or something. That being said, let's get it started with number 10, Wolfenstein. Now, you may wonder, what is amazing, what is miraculous about Wolfenstein? Well, it is that this series, even though it dates back to the early 80s, when it wasn't made by id Software and not a first-person shooter, has always had the same basic idea. There are Nazis around, then you have to do something about it. At first you were hiding from them, quanking them over the head, stealing their uniforms, then you just shot them in the face, and some of them were atomic Nazi robot zombie vampires, I think. But the core idea was always the same, that you always killed Nazis. And yet somehow miraculously you'll find on the internet currently people complaining about it. Now, to be fair, some of these may be absolute trolls and just trying to poke fun at something, but some of them don't seem to be trolls. You'll actually find comments that there's some message to the game, that Nazis are bad, that that's some kind of propaganda, and people are upset about this. And if that's not miraculous, I don't know what is. You've got the series where you shot robot Adolf Hitler, and either in this one or in the next one, you're gonna fight a zombie Adolf Hitler, because he's a zombie in the New Order. You see news clips of him that describe him as being a bit zombie-ish in nature, decaying, stuff. And yet people are upset that in this game you fight Nazis, and they're sort of acting like this is some new thing, recent event. It's got something to do with stuff that's happening in the US, not to do with the fact that you're playing Wolfenstein. I find that miraculous, honestly. Number 9, Call of Duty still sells. Here's a miracle for you. Every year Call of Duty comes out. Everybody says it sucks. Everywhere you look on the internet, everybody will tell you, man, it's crap, it's horrible. Look at the rating of the YouTube trailer. It's the lowest you've ever seen in the history of YouTube trailers for a video game. And yet, despite all this, it'll sell every year in excess of 10 million copies easy. It'll be a sales juggernaut. It will outsell pretty much every other game launched that month, most of the games launched that year, and will continue to do so every year. If that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. Think about it. Even though no one likes it, it still sells incredibly well. Even though people boycott it, it will still sell. Usually among the buyers being the people that boycotted it. It's a miracle. An absolute miracle. Number 8, Path of Exile. Here you have an anomaly, a complete and utter bizarre creation that should not exist. This is, in terms of gameplay, the Diablo 3 that we had hoped would be released by Blizzard itself, before they went a bit chicken and decided to not overcomplicate its design and return back to basics. Basics which are sort of actually more tied to Call of Duty in terms of how you build your character than it is to Diablo, which is something that someone in our Discord channel mentioned a while ago. Join it if you want to see more interesting discussions about games and stuff, or don't. There are instances there where things get a bit embarrassing, and the less people see them the better. But here we have Path of Exile. Not only is it, in terms of the complexity of the gameplay as we would have wished Diablo 3 was, but it is the superior games in terms of not being pay to win than Diablo 3 was. Think about it. Diablo 3, on its release, had an item mall through which you could gain weapons, which were the only way, and still are the only way, you can differentiate your character from any other character in the game. They are the only deciding factor in the power level of your character. On its release, it was pay to win. It was absolutely pay to win. Oh, sure, you may say, well, it's a cooperative something or other game. That's no pay to win. It is. When you can just pay to skip over pretty much the essence of the game, what would be the point of it? You play it to get loot, to have fun, and they just killed the loot. Meanwhile, Path of Exile, a game developed with a budget of, what was it, 5 shoelaces and a moldy carrot, is legitimately free. All classes are free. All acts are free. It does not gouge you for a penny. It is only sustained through cosmetics and getting more stash tabs, though you have a bunch of them to start with. It is a miracle that this game exists and is prosperous enough to continue development, even though it does not treat the player base as a cash cow, as something to be milked bone dry to get anything new. You had to pay money, kind of a lot of it, to play as a necromancer in Diablo 3, and also have the expansion. You want to play as an extra class in Path of Exile? Finish the game once. Bam, new class unlocked. That's how you do stuff, Blizzard. You used to be in the last version of this show. Remember it? Well, now you ain't. So if you haven't played Path of Exile, go do it now. It's a miracle. Also, put it on an SSD, because if you don't, it'll be a miracle if it loads after an hour. Number 7. CounterStrike. People have been playing it since 1999. Yes, it's been tweaked a bit. It got some new versions. One of them didn't have, flashbangs or smoke grenades. They removed one of them from Counter-Strike Source, but they put them back in Go. At its core, it is the same game. I know, in the comments, I know you're going to say, well, the weapons behave somewhat. We know, we have a show about it. You should see it. It took Raul 3 months to make it. But it is the same game. It's been mostly unchanged for almost 20 years. And yet people still play it. People that complain that games are not innovating will still play it constantly. People that complain that Battlefield 1's beta only had one map, a big one with a train on it, complain about that even though they've been playing Dust 2 since before the first Battlefield was even launched. And Dust 2, by the way, is now getting a makeover. Not that it was needed, because everyone in CSGO still plays, for the most part, just Dust 2 endlessly. They require nothing else. And if that's not a miracle, I don't know what you can call a miracle. Counter-Strike is miraculous. It is probably the only game series, it's not even a series, it's the same game, that has improved over the years by having stuff taken out of it. Sure, they added some bits into it with the last operation, but for the most part, they just started taking out parts of it. Remember, it used to have VIP escorting missions? No one does. They weren't all that great, I think. I don't know. No one cared. That's what makes the rest of the game so miraculous. It has endured when series and franchises have faltered. The entire Medal of Honor series was created, rose up, and burned in flames, while Counter-Strike never let out. It never stopped. Well, until PUBG and Fortnite came along and things. They're still great, but not as good as they used to be. Number 6. Spec Ops The Line. The fact that this game exists is a miracle. It is an absolutely mediocre shooter meant to be an absolutely mediocre shooter in terms of mechanics. In an industry and a culture, if you will, originally American, that fetishizes the military. It shines that flagpole like it was its only point in life. It glorifies war to the point where you think that some people may have issues or contracts with the Pentagon or Michael Bay. Here comes this game that tells you you're a dumbass. War is violence. It is vile. It is murder. It is atrocity. And you are not a hero. You are not a good guy. you are a murderer. No matter how good your intentions may be, war is not healthy. It is not something to be glorified, and it did it with a giant pair of balls that the Metal Gear series never had. The Metal Gear series is also anti-war. And although I love the Phantom Pain, it is, first of all, a giant troll on the part of Konami and Kojima, and it never goes truly as dark as it could have gone, as it alluded it would have gone in the trailers. This one does. Spec Ops The Line goes deeper. It goes to the limit and then burns it down with white phosphorus. The fact that in an industry that often uses soldiers as a marketing tool, hey look, our game was developed with the help of real-life Tier 1 operators. Our game is based on the books written by some SEAL guy. Our game is endorsed by the army itself. Spec Ops The Line had the courage to say no. Sure, to actually get it published, they had to tack on a multiplayer, which kind of defeated the entire point of the idea of the game, one of it being a really boring in terms of mechanic shooter where you play as a monster, but it's still a miracle, an absolute miracle. Number 5, Kickstarter. Now, regardless of what you may believe about some of the projects that are on there and some of the people that have financed their projects through that, Kickstarter was a miracle. It just torpedoed the gaming industry. It proved that the developer can get money from the audience to make the game the audience wants and the game that the developer wants without a publisher in the middle. Without some soap salesman in a suit telling them, well, nobody wants to play an isometric RPG. Strategy games aren't contemporary. I eat poop. It broke the boundaries. And we can actually all thank Tim Schafer for it. Yeah, there had been games on Kickstarter before, but none of them had the same kind of attention level drawn to it as Double Fine Adventure, as Broken Age. The result was, to tell you the truth, I never actually played the second part. The first one was kind of meh, extremely meh, kind of Tim, why did you do that? But it cannot be understated that Tim Schafer pulled indie game developers into the future. That Kickstarter was the tool through which we received some of the greatest games ever made. Divinity Original Sin, one of the greatest RPGs ever made, would have not been possible without Kickstarter. Nobody wanted to finance it. The Shadowrun games, the new ones, they would have not existed without this. Battletech, the new one, again, no chance without it. And the list goes on and on and on. Even though there may be an around there somewhere, or some water bottle for hipsters that don't know what thirst is, I hope you rot in hell. It cannot be understated that Kickstarter changed things for the better. It was a miracle. Number 4, Assassin's Creed multiplayer. In an industry where every game needs a tacked on multiplayer, even Spec Ops The Line had one, it undermined the game. When Tomb Raider, a game about raiding tombs, gets a multiplayer mode that's about shooting people in the face in teams, when a very touching and sensitive story about some of the last human beings left on the planet Earth trying to find salvation, trying to find themselves. When The Last of Us gets deathmatch, you cannot say that what happened with Assassin's Creed is a miracle. They could have just made this some 2-bit action mode where you stab each other in the face and call it a day. They could have made it For Honor, basically, a worse version of For Honor. But instead, they put an indie game darling into the series. They put a slimmed down, stripped down, but not diluted version of the ship into Assassin's Creed, and it worked. Yeah, it was more focused on action, but not in the way that people think about action. It was faster, leaner, quicker, snappier, and it still was a game about subtlety, about subterfuge, about playing against your opponent's expectation, about playing the player, not just playing the game. And apart from it having a couple of bugs in assassination mode up until the third one, and kind of them screwing up other things after the third one, but the fact alone that it lasted 4 games, Brotherhood, Revelations 3 and 4, they all had that. The fact that they all had that multiplayer mode is a miracle. That for 4 years, you could find a AAA single-player game with a multiplayer mode that was this good, that honestly at times was more of a stealth game, more of an assassination game than any single-player mission in Assassin's Creed. That's a miracle. That is hands down an absolute miracle. Sure, they put microtransactions in it, but it's Ubisoft. You can't expect them to do everything right. They could have made it stand alone and, loaded up with more microtransactions, but they didn't even do that because it was Ubisoft. Number 3, Electronic Arts. Now, if you're wondering how can Electronic Arts be a miracle, well, think about it. Everyone hates Electronic Arts. Everyone has reasons to hate Electronic Arts. It treated its employees almost like slaves. It treated its customers like basically crap. It killed companies, it snuffed out creativity, it destroyed dreams, it crushed everything it touched, it transformed glorious, fantastic game series into utter garbage. It is vile and terrible and still a gigantic juggernaut of profit that continues to sell games at a rate that boggles the mind. No one likes Electronic Arts, and yet it is still the second or third biggest publisher in video games. It is one of the biggest companies in the industry. It just keeps churning money. It keeps telling us, oh, we'll do better next time, and they never do. Everybody hates it. Nobody likes it. And yet it keeps on going. Stronger and stronger every year, as if it were feeding upon hatred. And that's a miracle. Number 2, South Korea. How can you not marvel at it? This is a country that has embraced video games at a level that no other nation has. Video games are part of its culture and not the kind of culture where it feels very comfortable shoving gaming under the bus anytime it feels convenient to do so, when some tragedy happens or someone wants to get some political clout and blame something on them. No, it is part of its culture at the same level as Go is, at the same level as chess would be to us. It is a phenomenon that shows us what we could have all had if only the people in charge, the culture curators that we have in our nations, in our worlds, were not the plistus asshats that are really pretty much just out for themselves, don't really care, don't want to see civilization evolve. The same kind of people that said in 1910, movies, since when are they art? South Korea embraced games, and it didn't ruin the country, it didn't turn people into mindless zombies that are doing nothing. South Korea is kind of gigantic in terms of GDP, what with it having some of the biggest electronics manufacturers in the world, the best internet, and pretty much a rock-solid economy. And no one there says, well, we should ban video games, they're evil. No, they're having stadiums packed with people there to see a StarCraft event. That's a miracle right there. That is absolutely fantastic. And it would have been the greatest miracle of gaming when I first made this show in 2014, it was, but there's been something else recently, and that is number 1. We live in the greatest possible time for games. Now, I know I've said countless times that maybe the games today are kind of horrible compared to what they used to be. They are, absolutely are, but times are changing because of Kickstarter, because of the right people making games the right way. Things are changing. They're improving. We are now in a miraculous time because currently there are 2 System Shock games being developed. One is being developed by the people that made System Shock. The other one is being developed by people that loved System Shock. And you know what else we got when people that love System Shock did a System Shock game? We got System Shock 2. Sure, they're making a remake, but still, 2 System Shock games. We have 2 Battletech games being developed at once. One of them is Battletech, turn-based mech combat. The other one is MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, which is gonna let you gallivant around the galaxy like the first one did. And we have, I kid you not, and this is the reason why I placed this at number 1. we have 2 Star Control games being developed right now. One is Star Control Origins. It's going to be based a lot on modding, on player content, on exploring your galaxy and making up your own stories. It's made by Star Trek. It looks nice, probably going to be good. And the other one is a direct sequel to Star Control 2, announced yesterday. From your point of view, if you're seeing this show on Wednesday, it was announced yesterday. It is being made by Fred Ford and Paul Reich. It is going to continue the story of Star Control 2 after 25 years of waiting. After 25 years, after a quarter of a century, it's gonna have what the other one had. It's gonna have the Spot, it's gonna have Fwifo, it's gonna have the Urquans, it's gonna have a continuation of that storyline, of that depth, that breadth, that absolute gem of gaming is going to continue. It's going to be reborn for a new generation. Again, it's not a remake, it's a sequel. The one that people have been waiting for a long part of their lives. We live now in a time of miracles because this would have not happened 10 years ago. This would have not happened 15 years ago. But it is happening now. Regardless of what else is happening in the world, with terrible things everywhere and suffering and pain, take solace in the idea that you'll find a refuge in video games, and some of them that are being made right now could be among the greatest ever created. So closes this extra long top 10 miracles of gaming. A few special mentions are given to Ultima Underworld, a game that was not meant for its age, but thanks to it we now have pretty much every first-person game that's not a shooter, to World of Warcraft that came at a time when it needed to be there and created a completely new level of engagement that dwarfed every MMO before it. The miracle of Peter Molyneux still having a career, and to the miracle of Windows, an operating system with an install base that defies all reason, and yet one that miraculously Microsoft never managed to properly exploit as a gaming platform for reasons that are about as clear as why they got into the phone business in the first place. They had absolutely no clue what to do with them. And now at the end, I'm curious to know, what is your own personal miracle of gaming? Goodbye.